And we were with a young person who was in the group that day who gets hit outside the ballpark right in the forearm. Yeah, left a mark on his arm. And we were like, what?
Oh my gosh.
This is business as usual. There could be 10 or
Yes.
15 of these every single game that rain on the streets. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming back to another week, another day in Foul Ball Safety Now, where Foul Ball Safety Now talks. And today we're excited to bring on a guest. Before we bring on our guest, I wanted to bring some news to all of us. Foul Ball Safety Now has been working on a situation in Modesto, California, trying to get news to the folks that are attending the last games in Modesto. They're leaving town and going to San Bernardino next year, and we feel they should know what we know about a settlement. A little over a year ago, a woman was hit with a foul ball outside the ballpark, and unfortunately, she got seriously injured. And we just learned that that case was settled. And also, the Modesto Club is playing in a situation where the conglomerate that owns the Modesto Club also owns a lot of other clubs. And the Modesto Club, we believe, is the only team that doesn't have extended netting past end of dugouts, where we know it's very dangerous to be sitting in those sections where there's no netting past end of dugouts. So we want to let the fans know, sort of like this week is the swan song. They're saying goodbye, the team. But unfortunately, we have to let the fans know that they may have been disrespected along the way, and they can determine for themselves that management of the Modesto Club could have told them about things going on outside the ballpark or lack of netting inside the ballpark. So that's a whole thing that's going to be playing out. We're also working on a Queens College investigation where we're waiting on a response from the Queens College community, where the whistleblower student athlete contacted me some time back and was concerned that one of the teammates or himself could be the one directly responsible for hurting a child, because there's an elementary school that's right outside the ballpark on the same campus where the Queens College players practice and play their games. We're looking forward to starting a forum about that. It's not so unique that balls fly outside of ballparks. And yes, human beings are also baseball players who are young men who also are nervous about the fact that their balls can hurt people. So we feel like their feelings should be expressed and the people on the grounds of the campus should be safe. And we just talked about this issue in Modesto, California, where the woman was unfortunately hit by the ball a year ago. We're going to get into that as we go, keep you guys informed about what we're doing and statements we're making. I'm excited to bring on our guest. She's an artist in New York. Before we do that, I'm going to say hi to Brianna. Brianna's joining me as usual. Hi, Brianna.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Christine. Happy to be here.
So now I want to bring on our artist from New York. She's a stained glass artist, really interesting person. Christine DeTolvo.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Brianna.
Terrific. All right, Christine. So as you know, or the people who are listening now for the first time or have listened, they know that we turn the tables. The guests get a chance to ask us the questions. So they may be learning about foul ball safety now for the first time as of a few days ago, but after a few days of researching, they're ready. And they're ready to give us some feedback on the issue. Some have been intimately involved in baseball, and some are just learning about it for the first time. So, Christine, feel free to tell us anything you would like or get right into the questions, and then we'll ask you some questions later.
Great. I mean, I have questions. And then I asked a few of my baseball friends if they had questions. So I might represent a few of my friends as well in these questions.
Sure.
Well, first of all, what I want to know is, how did you get involved with this?
Thank you. Just
Yeah.
really watching the news in 2019 and seeing a little child get injured, I made a point that this was something I wanted to take on. I really told a friend of mine who's an attorney that this is something I want to step up and address. And I kind of knew early on that it would be, climbing a big mountain, because
Yeah.
I think the story could have been exposed a long time ago. Seeing this on the news in 2019 and a child getting seriously injured, I had some ideas, being a baseball person, that this was a reality. But I just seeing it and feeling it was really something that I knew could happen again and again and again, which 6 years later, we're still finding out that, of course, it's still happening.
Yeah, I had one of my friends sent me a link of statistics, and they're scary statistics. Seems like baseball is maybe one of the top sports where fans are getting injured the most severely.
Yeah, for sure. So something at the Foul Ball Safety Now website we revisited a report from 2019. I've been working with a journalist now by the name of Brendan for 6 years. So there was a report put out by a publication called 538 in 2019. But we took a fresh look at that report from 2019 and we put out something called Exhibit A1, which is a mathematical demonstration of just how many foul balls there are in professional baseball every single year. There's 2,460 major league games a year, but there's also around 14,000 other professional games every single year. And based on the numbers of foul balls there are per game, and you multiply it by 14,000, plus a demonstration that 538 put on their report, statistically showing with the percentages of those balls on what direction they travel, is really alarming. So I would want everyone to see that. How many of these balls really do go that fast into these exposed areas? And baseball really does have an idea if somebody would really plead with them to demand to know how many. They've been tracking balls and directions, how fast balls go and the directions they go in for the last decade or two. So they can't really dance around that issue.
Right. I'm specifically interested in Queens College because I'm not too far from there.
Yeah, if people Google Earth Queens College, you'll see that there's a public school on the campus of Queens College, and it's right next to the baseball field. So these student athletes are concerned that their balls in practice or during the games can hit kids. So that's ongoing. We believe that once we do finally establish a dialogue with them, they won't be so opposed to understanding that what's happening in their neck of the woods is happening in many, many places. As I expressed on the top about the Modesto situation, we've also know of a few other situations. A person bought a house on a development, which is also next to a high school baseball field, and her kids can't play during the practices and the games because balls are leaving the field and hitting her house. So her kids can't play. And supposedly the city council said, well, sorry, the field was here before the development, so you shouldn't have bought on that development. And so she's dealing with that. And then there was one more situation in Tennessee that we learned about where a booster, some guy who represents, I guess, a high school, told me they can't have soccer games and baseball games going on at the same time because the baseballs are leaving the field and going onto the soccer field. And at least they're conscious of it and they're talking about it. So that's a good thing. I'm learning of a lot of unique situations.
In the short time I had to prepare for this, I spoke to 4 of my friends who are big baseball fans. And it's funny because 2 of them had somewhat personal stories about. One of them actually was struck. Thank God he's okay. And then another friend had a friend who got a black eye. Thank God only a black eye. But totally during a major league game got struck in the face by a ball. So that's 2 out of 4 people.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that most people forever have been coming to games anticipating and looking forward to catching a foul ball. Unfortunately, they're more in a position, if they have time to react, to really block themselves and save their lives, let alone catch it, because it can be coming at them really, really fast. And you'll see the reactions on some of these videos. The people that do react, they're putting their hands up to shield themselves rather than to catch it, because many people all feel foul balls are associated with fun coming into the ballpark, but they don't really get the impression that it may be associated with a lot worse. We've interviewed so many people that have been disrupted by this experience. So it's been quite a journey for sure. We have plenty of stories and testimonies to share. At some point, we'll put out all of this information for people to see, from even the players being apologetic or contrite and telling us they knew they were experiencing a conflict because they had gone to work, knowing that their own families were safe, but at the same time, they would tell their families, you need to sit here, but they really weren't able to tell everybody else.
You mentioned at one point fans' reaction time. And one thing that I wrote down, because I did check out a few articles about this, apparently in 2012, there was an article that stated anywhere from behind the dugout to the elbow, you have 0.8 of 1 second to react. Is that for real?
Yeah. I mean, even if you're even further down, 1.4 seconds, whatever it is, it's a split second. We're not superheroes. And whether it's 0.8 or 1.4, what are we doing? Why are we there to begin with?
Right.
And
Right.
who can actually have the bravado and the confidence to say, hey, I'll sit here and my kid will sit next to me and I'll defend them? It doesn't work that way. You're one seat closer to the plate and you think you're going to defend your child from being hurt by a line drive. I've heard that too. You hear a lot of testimonies, certainly from players that Brendan and I have interviewed. We've interviewed more than 30 guys, and some of them come on looking to push back and play contrarian, and others fully acknowledge that they had no business, hitting the balls in their career towards kids. You really do
Right.
get a mixed bag, which is good. But even the ones that come on and speak to us about, hey, I'll defend my kid from a foul ball, I think they realize in a conversation that maybe it's not a good idea that the kids should be there to begin with. So I think with a little bit of time and a little bit of people willing to hear exactly what the reality is about how are you going to get out of the way from something that's 0.8 or 1.4, I think people will come
Right.
around.
Really is little to no reaction time, which is why the argument of the fan needs to quote unquote pay attention. You could be staring straight at the game and you don't have time to react because that's the reality
Right.
of the situation. Earlier this season, with the umpire Hunter Wendelstadt that was struck by a line drive, he was staring directly at the play. And he's somebody who has been around the game. He's a veteran umpire,
Right.
very experienced, and he could not get out of the way in time. And it just really paints the picture that a fan who obviously has way less experience than an umpire of being in and around the game is not going to have time to react.
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting, though,
Yes.
that you brought up that some people are opposed. My friend James actually brought this up to me. I didn't even think, when I thought about the issue, I thought, oh, well, everyone must think that that's a great idea. And he brought up the question, well, what percentage of fans think that they're superheroes, like you said, or want to just still bring that ball home as a souvenir?
Most people still come to the ballpark feeling they're invisible or they can catch a foul ball because they associate it
Wow.
with fun. So if there's
Right.
80 million baseball fans, I still think 79 million of them have not been affected, have not gotten the memo
Mhm.
that maybe they should think a little differently from the past to the present about how business as usual has been conducted. I think once they're open to it, they may realize that maybe it's unacceptable that they brought their children to games all those years and they were sitting in these exposed areas and they could have been part of that statistic. I have a saying that sometimes we taint people's memories. Sorry, somebody
Right.
has to.
Right.
I have the news. You may have not gotten the memo, but isn't it better later than never that you did? That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, our
Yeah.
homes used to have lead paint. So, that's
Yeah.
just. Well, my friend Rachel specifically wants to know which sections of the stadium are more frequently hit and how does it lessen through other areas of the stadium?
So at this time, I can't endorse any game because business as usual at any game. There's 30 MLB ballparks. There's 169 other professional ballparks. So I can't really say that one is safer than another. So
Right.
it's unfortunate. It would be great if I could. I have an idea on how to get to those places where your friend could be reassured, but that happens when we finally have a conversation, when the three of us finally turn on 12 like-minded souls, who then turn on 36 like-minded souls. And then from there, they'll figure out exactly how business as usual should be, because it may be above our pay grade to determine. We don't know much about safety. We haven't trained in that field. We would like something called an independent netting council that would determine every ballpark, even with if it's safe or not, if it's kid-friendly or not,
Right.
if people can come to the game and guarantee that there won't be any kind of serious injury due to baseballs or bats. But unfortunately, we cannot. But I do believe that it could happen. The word just has to get out that we need some more transparency in this area of baseball, of doing business every day in America. It hasn't been done the correct way. Unfortunately, I can't give your friend any sort of I can certainly give them some things to look out for that maybe they wouldn't have looked out for beforehand, but I can't guarantee anything. I was outside a ballpark myself 20 years ago in Brooklyn, New York, in Coney Island with my friends, and we were with a young person who was in the group that day who gets hit outside the ballpark, right in the forearm.
Oh,
Yes,
uh,
left a mark on his arm. And we were like, what the
oh my
heck?
gosh.
This is business as usual. There could be 10
Yeah.
or 15 of these every single game. They rain on the streets or in the parking lot and break windows, which we know it's done, and which we brought
Yes.
up about the Modesto situation, which the woman unfortunately was struck in the head last year. We've been in the dark ages. We're still in the dark ages. Have there been some improvements? Have you heard about netting upgrades? Yeah, but we've also heard about upgrades in major league ballparks and people getting blinded and concussed.
Right.
So
Right.
I know a guy, I spoke with his son. His father was blinded in Pittsburgh in 2023. A
Wow.
woman last year in Toronto, we spoke with her. She was concussed by a foul ball. And this is a major league ballpark. So some of these other professional ballparks all throughout the states, you got to just try to find out for yourself. Be careful.
Right.
You know, do you
Right.
see the little kids on construction sites? You don't. And that's for a reason, let alone
Exactly. Yeah.
without helmets and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely
Yeah.
makes sense. My friend Jim wants to know if any MLB players have come out in favor publicly for protection for the fans.
Well, I mean, the only people that we've interviewed that we know of have gone 30 minutes talking about their own concerns and their own history with the baseball game, about their own conflicts. But there have been baseball players, and we haven't disclosed those interviews as of yet. We were saving them
Right.
for a book publication. We get a sense that they're sorry, and we get a sense that they were in conflict because they were told their own parents to sit in certain sections, but they knew they were maybe hurting somebody at some point. But there have been players that have come out and said this, that there should be, nets, and they were disgusted that they weren't. It's unfortunately very short-lived conversation. It's usually the same night as somebody got smashed by a foul ball, and then a reporter may go up and ask them how you feel.
Right.
And they feel sad, but nothing is being addressed to the issue. Supposedly there's a players union that represents all the baseball players. I've heard there was negotiations over the years. Every 4 years there's collective bargaining discussions. And I would love to be a fly on the wall to hear what those negotiations
Absolutely.
were. Because
Yeah,
if the
absolutely.
players union was asking for more nets, then why didn't the players union demand more nets and say it's a non-starter? It's like, would you allow your bricklayers rank and file to go to work knowing that they had a crappy cement base and that the cement would dissolve and the bricks would rain down every few months? I don't think the bricklayers union would allow their rank and file to go to work with a tainted product. Similar to the players union, if they really did negotiate over the last 16 years, every 4 years for their contract with Major League Baseball, and supposedly if the netting issue did come up, I mean, why wouldn't they just demand it and say it's a non-starter? We just, we know how our rank and file feels, and they don't want to go to work and smash balls at kids. We're not going to work until we know that we can guarantee that these kids won't be hurt anymore. I think players to some degree have come out, but I don't really feel in the spirit of collective bargaining and in genuine commitment have they come out all the way. No, but there's been comments along the way. It's usually emotionally when it's just happened. But I really I feel like everyone is part of this community, and not only the players should be speaking up, but certainly everyone within the game should be speaking up. There's so many
Absolutely.
people that work within the game, players, writers, broadcasters. So I think they can all get together rank and file style and make some noise, but what can you do?
Yeah.
We're making
Yeah.
noise right now. So I appreciate that, Christina.
Of course.
Yes.
My last one is from my
course.
friend James. So
Yes.
we've discussed a little bit about netting. What are the solutions here? And tell us more about netting.
Well, the solutions, we're addressing them right now. I have a little saying, in 15 minutes, we can put all the unknown factors on the table. And then all of us can finally stare at it. We're looking at it. We can all determine, wow, this has been business as usual for all these years. Yes, it has been. And once we see all the information on the table, then the dialogue will begin. But what we're talking about is nets. We're talking about all questions questions being raised about what the risks are inside and outside the ballpark. We're talking about whether we can prevent balls from coming at certain speeds that will cause harm. We're talking about the idea that if the balls are still finding their way into certain sections, should baseball be marketing their sport in a way where you need to be 18 and older, but you can't bring the kids? Like if you really want to take the risk, like running with bulls in Spain, you could do that, but
Right.
you have to be 18 and older. Can't bring the little guys. So all things need to be questioned, period. Once we all come to a consensus, whether we're safety experts or not, we'll certainly know what we want to bring to the safety experts once we finally have a dialogue and a conversation about what the concerns are. We're all regular people. We can make informed decisions, but how about putting the information on the table so we can finally get informed? Baseball knows to the penny every winter exactly how many line drives are going at warp speed every spring and summer. They haven't told us that. They've mentioned to you when you're at the game, be careful of a foul ball. Maybe an announcement once or twice, or even signs. But we're not superheroes, so we can't be in a position when the time does come to deflect. It's not a situation that's really should have been ever compromised, but it always was. I hope it's not always will. So solutions are nets. Solutions are dialogue, which will lead to nets, appropriate conversation about this is where the kids can come, where they can't. This is where the risk remains. This is where it doesn't. And then everything will kind of come together. I think we can do it. I think baseball can continue. And until
Absolutely.
we finally have transparency, we're still in the dark ages. So that's where it's at. And we encourage these questions and these phone calls and these opportunities.
Yeah, there are many different avenues and ways to approach this issue. So, my question for you, Christine, as an artist, is how do you feel art can help shed a light on topics or conversations that are more difficult to process and people tend to shy away from or to turn the other way?
I mean, artists writing about this, artists doing pieces about this, artists interviewing people who have experienced injury and making art about it. I mean, artists are very commonly advocates for, humanity. That's the first step right there.
That was great. Christine, your friends are invited, of course, to come speak with us anytime. We would love to hear some questions from them. I think this is a great podcast, and I want everyone to go to foulballsafetynow.com and check out, the history of Foul Ball Safety Now, our 6 years of putting things out there that everyone can see, and we will do this again. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.